Welcome to Otherworldly, the Changing Times, Changing World weekly show. We are, this week we have Rodney Cox. We tried to get him last week, but that got a little mixed up. So this week we've got him. Yay.
Yay.
Very exciting for me because in 2004, I went to a conference, ConVocation in Michigan, and saw something on there that said Runic Reiki, and I was like, runes and Reiki, I'm there. And went there, and this cute young man who has aged the way we all do, had come up with a system to do Reiki-like behaviors with runes. And he then innocently at the end of it said, go forth and teach about the system, which I did.
Go forth and do the will of Odin and Freya.
Yeah. And yeah, and Odin is pushing this. I have several times when I have attuned people, I have felt him being there ready to snatch them up, and I said, stay off. Let them alone, let it sink in before we before you try and utilize their new abilities. This system actually is, it's important that I want to say Reiki is a pretty safe system. It gives, it helps get energy evened out to every place that needs it when it's blocked from it. Rún Valdr is the runes, and the runes were basically invented 2,000 years ago by Odin to, if you believe the Havamal, and that is not the only source, it's only what we've got left, but to basically smite enemies and get into young ladies' pants or skirts. Basically, Rún Valdr isn't safe. It's powerful. It's really powerful, and I sometimes refer to doing Rún Valdr attunements as giving chainsaws to children. You don't pass this on to anyone who you don't trust with it. Now I'm going to introduce, here's Rod, who is the, he's the one that got it. And do you want to tell them the story? I mentioned it briefly last week.
Yeah.
But if you want to cover that too.
It started years ago, I guess mid 1990s. I was much more closer to Bridget. And I think she was really pushing me for the healing stuff. So I got interested in Reiki, and it was almost obsessive. I needed to learn as much Reiki as fast as possible. So I had some local teachers, eventually got master level. And then I became more obsessed then with some more Reiki symbols that are out there. And so I learned a bunch of different Reiki systems. And then I thought, you know, runes are symbols. And then I started getting closer to Odin, and Breach kind of stepped back after I got my master level Reiki. And so I started using runes. I found Isa, which can act as, you know, a bridge, worked as the, you know, you could use that as the distance symbol in Reiki. Algis acted as like the power symbol for Reiki. I tested this with my mom, and, you know, I said, hey, let me try this, and it worked. And then I used it on my teachers, like, wow, it feels a lot more raw than regular Reiki. And so then I became interested in more and more symbols, and eventually I started going to Odin and Freya for symbols for things. And then I realized, you know what, I can make my own system. And I like Reiki that you didn't use your own energy, got passed on by an attunement, which was a super magical experience. I mean, I remember receiving attunements. You feel all this energy, and I could, with my eyes closed, I could feel like teachers walking around. Just I could feel the energy of their, you know, stuff. But when you're giving a rune or a Reiki attunement, you don't really feel anything at all. It's like you're just going through the motions, and the people you're working on experience all this wonderful stuff, and you're like, I didn't feel anything. So, but overall, I mean, the attunement system is powerful and magical, because all of a sudden, within a short manner of time, someone can do something they couldn't do before, and access things they couldn't access before. So I like that, and I like symbols and runes. So, and being very visually oriented, there's lots and lots of symbols in the system. So if you're not visually oriented, I'm sorry. In fact, I have an email from someone who's more or less blind, and they want me to describe how to draw each symbol. I'm like, that's a daunting task, but probably worth doing. So then after I created my system, I was still calling it, Runic Reiki. Then I realized it's not really, once I started developing my own system, because it's not really Reiki anymore. I mean, it's similar in, the attunements and symbols, and you're not using your own energy. Other than that, it's vastly different. It's more of a magical system, way to access power. And so eventually I got more and more symbols. I thought, well, I want a symbol that does this from Reiki, because that's cool. And I want a symbol that does this and a symbol that does that. And then I was doing trans-journey work to talk to Odin and Freya to get symbols. And finally I went to Odin and said, okay, I need a attunement process. So he told me what it was, because just one attunement. I'm like, one attunement, because I'm used to Reiki with 3. And like, nope, just one. Like, okay. And he showed it to me. He gave me an attunement during the trance journey, and that was it. And that was like in November of 2003. I put it together, and I taught the class at ConVocation. And in fact, you were one of my first students ever, and you probably tuned more people than I have over the years.
Maybe.
But yeah, and then it's grown, and I eventually put out the book and gotten more symbols and things since then.
Let's the book, putting here the link to the book, so that if people want to get the book, look in the chat, and there's the link to the book. You can also get it on Amazon, but if Rod gets more money from the link than from Lulu,
True.
for goodness sakes, he's the one that put the work in. Why should we give just Bezos money?
Yes, indeed.
So, but yeah, I don't know if you've heard this story before. I don't want to trip over you, but I want people to understand just how powerful this is. This is one summer when it was still, I think it was the first year, a lady came by at Penzic, and she was from Florida, and she'd heard that there was a hurricane headed directly toward her town. And I had taught this, and what I'm saying is that you can do Rún Valdr even if you don't know what you're doing. It's what Jim Butcher referred to as vending machine magic. You do the right moves, you say the right things, it works. So she did not yet know any runes. She had the little sheets that Rod prepared and gave out, but she knew how to dowse. So she pulled out her pendulum, and she held it over the sheet and said, which of these runes should I use? And she put them on and used the distance symbol, and she'd had 1 hour and the attunement. And the next morning, she called up her next door neighbor to find out if she should head back down to her home to start rebuilding. And her next door neighbor said, the hurricane went right through our street, and every house on the street has had major damage except yours. One tree fell in your backyard and didn't hit anything. Now, and she came to me after she'd done that, and she said, because I was doing another class the next day, and she said, these are the runes that I used. Can you tell me if they're the right ones? And I thought, well, clearly they were the right ones, but they were Odal, which is your home,
Home.
and the 2 protection runes, Ehas and Algis.
Mm.
And it's like, if you want to protect your home, and so she simply put those on it with the distance rune, and that's it. So that's my little, so I didn't know if you'd heard that story
Nope,
before,
no,
and I thought that,
Started. Oh yeah, stand back if you think I ain't. Oh.
so,
Yeah.
but that is the, that's something I thought you should hear.
Well, there's gonna be a
Okay,
point somewhere.
somebody isn't muted who ought to be.
No, I lost it. I did.
Let's see if that takes care of that.
All right.
Okay. So I wanted you to have heard that story.
No, I had not. That's awesome.
after a minute, well, I want people, I tell it a lot because I want people to know. Another thing that I have learned over years of teaching this, the one thing I'm really sick of hearing is, oh yes, I got an attunement several years ago and I've never done anything with it.
Mm-hmm.
No, when I do the weekend long, when I do the, you're coming back every week for 3 hours, and I make people, okay, here, now you're going to do some healing, and here you're going to do some awakening, and here you're going to do some distance work, and here, then people just get on it and start using it. But if you don't make them start using it right away, then it's not something that they get. It's a theory in the back of their mind.
Yeah, plus since it's so complicated and you have lots of symbols plus all the runes, it's a lot there. You can just, go, well, that's a lot to absorb. I don't think I'll do much. But it gives you lots of really good tools. I mean, the distance symbols, the energy, conduit symbols can help you, channel your magic, direct it where you want to go, get energy from elsewhere to help with the working. There's a lot of powerful tools that you could use for everyday magic, that not just restricted to Rún Valdr use.
But I always
it can be
tell
daunting.
people that they don't have to. That if you are going to, you can have a whole toolkit, your Sears Craftsman thing, but mostly you're going to be using your screwdriver, your hammer, and you won't be using most of them the rest of the time. You don't have to.
Yeah.
You can take this book, or the handouts, and you can just use the ones you need. Figure out what you need to do, figure out which runes, and you can write it down beforehand, because it doesn't start till you push the button that says Shambul Shenal. There you go. It doesn't do anything while you're writing it down. Write it down. I tell people, get index cards and make a recipe box of the spells you want to do.
I do that myself. If I'm attuning an object, I'll write it all out, because it's nothing worse than getting near, you're about to finish and you're like, you forget something. Oh crap, I forgot to throw this in there. And it just kind of disrupts your whole mental thing. So yeah, write it all out.
Great. The founder writes it down first.
Yeah.
That makes me feel good about that advice. But
yeah, because this crap's complicated. So I mean, you don't want to get tripped up halfway through because you forgot something. So yeah, write it all out. Know what each one's going to do, and then you're all set.
Yeah. So I am going to say that having said there isn't going to be a next level, you have added more. You keep adding more. Oh, I have not mentioned, there's a Facebook group.
Yes.
That if you're interested, join the Facebook group.
One of these days I'll get around to the second 8 of Rune to discuss. That's one thing when I wrote the book and you talk about the runes. Over the years, I started off with Edred Thorson, and then slowly I'm drifting more and more toward primary sources. So where is it here? R.I. Page is good for a very mundane look of the runes, but there's a book. Where is it? Is it Swain Plowright? It's crap. Well, all these books here, I can't find the one I want. But it's like the rune handbook, and he goes very close to the rune poems, and going over the rune poems. That's why I include them all in the book with each rune. You kind of learn insights into things. Although, as I said in the book, but it bears repeating, none of the rune poems deal with the Elder Futhark. And they were all written down centuries after by Christians. So things get a bit weird. The Anglo-Saxon Futhark was the earliest, and it's probably closest because it includes all of the Elder Futhark plus the extra ones that you find in the Anglo-Saxon stuff. And then the Norwegian was next in the 1400s, and the Icelandic after that. Oh no, 1300s, and the Icelandic is 1400s. So you have problems with that, especially with the K, with Ken from the Anglo-Saxon, and then Kaun from the Norwegian and Icelandic, where they're totally different meanings. Ken is about the torch. It's called a torch. It's tamed fire, like for forges and light and cooking. The Icelandic Kaun is about disease and death. So I think in that case, because the Anglo-Saxon has a rune for disease and death, I forget which is one of the later ones. The younger Futhark didn't, so they use Kaun to represent that. So you can't really reconcile those two meanings. So it makes looking at the rune poems difficult, especially since the younger Futhark is dealt with in Norwegian and Icelandic. So it doesn't have all of the runes as the Elder Futhark or the Anglo-Saxon. So, well, rune poems are great to look at as primary sources. They are problematic, and you kind of have to deal with things as well. So, but I found it interesting to go, to the rune poems as much as possible.
One of the ones that if you look at the Havamal descriptions, where it says, I know one that, the one that opens fetters, I would love, I would use Lugar for opening and shutting for that one. But I keep remembering that Odin got the ones for the Aesir, and they said that so-and-so got one for the dwarves and so-and-so got one for men. So right. I want to assume there are many more runes collections out there. And
yeah,
just,
plus I think in the Havamal, where it goes, I know the first, I think those are actual spells, not individual runes, because you have Guido von List with Armanen runes. He created his rune system based upon those charms or spells. But yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of interesting things out there, and all the gods know I added a bunch of extra symbols and shit too. So
and Rod Cox got the ones for the Americans.
Yeah. They all look like crop circles. Looks like some of the later ones, but
I was blown away about 2 years after using it when I realized that Shambul was the same symbol that's on the power button on my computer.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, oh yes, of course that is going to reach into the modern American's mind and say, turn the power on.
Yeah.
But that is really so useful when you're using it, because you can do all your preparation and then go to the power button when you want it to.
Yeah. We should probably talk about how the system works. I mean, if you have like a focus symbol, which would either be shit, I forgot all the names because I use different ones now. Well,
Oh,
crap.
the focus ones. Those are amazing.
The shoot, give me some of them. Cause I use Sovnal, which is a later one. Hold on. Yeah, I use different things now. Shinal. So yeah, something like Shinal, that's the one I got from Freya. First one I got from Freya. She's like, it brings the iron within. So it's kind of, and the shape of it, the lines I think are lines of transmission energy, and the circles are like reservoir power. So this one with a dot.
Let's see, can I?
Yeah.
I'm seeing if I can.
A little over.
Trying to get the light on the book.
Yeah.
And this lined up. Can you try the screen share and see if you can draw it?
Sure. Screen share.
Green button at the bottom.
There we go. So you have a line, and then you have a dot at the end. So the line, energy coming down, then it kind of collects and gets concentrated in the bottom. I use Sovnal, which is you add a diamond shape, so it kind of looks like a spear. And instead of Shambul, I tend to use
The Dora?
this. Yeah, Dorva, which is channeling energy. That's kind of my go-to power symbol. And then the Sovnal is the focus one. One key warning I got was, don't see Shinal as black, because it will strip away your ability to feel emotions. And that's not healthy for human beings. So I've had people think, oh, well, that's a good thing. You can use that to control emotions. Like, no, it's because it's all about intention. Well, granted, intention is important because because especially with Rune Valdr, because it's not as safe. But it's like, oh, I have the intention that when I pull the trigger of this gun, the bullet won't actually hurt me. It's not going to work, no matter what your intentions are. So, you don't want your ability to feel emotions stripped away from you, because you won't be human anymore, and that's what psychopaths are like. So, I mean, it's not cool. But so anyway, you have your focus symbol like Shinal, and then you kind of program it with other symbols. And then you use a power symbol to activate the energy. Then you just concentrate on the focus symbol during the whole working. That way, it just gives you one fairly simple thing to concentrate on. And then you let the energy go, and you direct it. You tell it what to do. I want you to do this and do this for me, and visualize what you're wanting. And then, unlike Reiki, if you lose concentration, you lose connection, and you have to start all over. So it's a lot more work than Reiki. You just turn it on, it does what it wants, and that's it. So that's the basics of how it works.
Not to argue with the master, but I can set it on a time release thing, and
oh yeah, you can do that too. But I mean, if you're actively working on something and you get distracted, you'll lose the energy. The energy flow will stop, and you have to start all over. But yeah, if you're setting up as a timer, then yeah.
I suppose as long as you got it to the point where you seal it at the end.
Yeah.
You got to seal it. You got to complete it.
Yeah.
Complete the working, because if you don't complete it, it's not going to be done.
Yeah,
Now,
and that's something unique too to the system. That's the sealing symbol. Where in Reiki you only have a sealing symbol if you're doing an attunement. With this one, I think even any working, when you're done, you use a sealing symbol.
Yeah, I wanted to introduce you to Star Wolf, to
Hello.
Sean Kane,
Oh,
because he was one of the earliest people I attuned, and
Huh.
he's done some really fun things with it. You haven't got the bear with you, do you?
No, he's in the other room.
Okay.
Didn't think
He's
I needed
awakened
him.
and attuned. But both Sean and I have awakened and attuned stuffies.
Hmm.
So, did you have anything you wanted to ask or tell him about?
Not really. I tend to use it a lot for making things because that's the sort of sorcerer I am. Except when I'm in the other worlds, and then that becomes my all-purpose spell kit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do a
But,
lot of object work too.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm in my wife's office because it's one of the few places that's the least cluttered in the house.
Mm.
So all of my stuff is in other parts of the house. My walking stick, my staff, my bear. So
Yeah, it's just I think that the more people, it's something like a virus, the more you spread it, the more mutations are available.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, then I started getting into other weirder things, like at a ADF festival in Summerland, which takes place in August. Ian Corrigan did this thing he called the Court of Briege, where he looked at Briege and goes, well, she got three main functions: healing, smith crafting, and bardic stuff or poetry or whatever. So he said, well, each of those could be represented by a power, three separate entities, and then you could deal with them, and through each of them you could get a working spirit to deal with. For example, and then he had like this mass thing where we all got together. He summoned Breeze and the three powers, and we all kind of went into a trance thing to try to meet with one of these spirits. And some got healing ones, some got poetry ones, some got smithing type or creating things. And then you could use these as like the old grimoires where you're summoning spirits, you're making bargains, like they wanted specific things like a cup of wine or something. And then you have them help you do magic. So I said, well, I can do that. Basically, most of Ian's stuff, because he's very Irish in his outlook. I said, I need to rewrite all of his books from a Norse point of view. He's like, yeah, go for it. But so I said, I could do that. And being in this festival, he picked Breach because she's fairly safe in terms of not a lot of dangerous things. You wouldn't do that with the Morgan in a festival.
no, definitely not.
Nope. So I said, well, I could do that, and I'll pick Sif, because Sif, I went through the Troth book, and there's like, she has no warlike aspects, very peaceful. And I went to her, trance journey. I said, hey, I have this idea, and she's like, okay, there's 5. I'm like, okay. So I went through the Troth book, and I pulled out, here's what aspects that she, or areas of power that she deals with, and I got done with my list, and sure enough, I had 5. So I called them the chieftains. So I kind of changed the terminology a little more Norse-like. And eventually you call it the Hall of Sif. So the following year, I did the same thing he did, but with Sif, and people got a variety of spirits. And one of Sif's chiefs is the seer, foretelling the future and stuff. And one person got this interesting spirit. It's a kind of a weird shape. And it said its name was Possibility. And it required that you had a open corner for it to live in your house. Which I thought was just really interesting. That the idea of foretelling the future, and you have this thing of possibility. So through that, I developed chieftains for Odin and Freya, and Iduna. So I've been working with a bunch of ones from Freya, particularly Manifestation, because in the Troth talked about her being a the mastery of physical manifestations. Like, okay. And so working with that gives you new insights into how to do things and use things. And it's kind of interesting. And interestingly, all, between Odin, Iduna, and Freya, each of them have chieftains for sex, but they're very different. Iduna is more of a healing, restorative thing, sex as a way of healing. Freya is more of a passionate outpouring of emotion.
Yeah.
And Odin was much more, I won't say clinical, but it was like, here's instructions to make it a deeper experience. You're sharing with things, you do this to get a more broader experience. And like, okay, it's more of teaching you techniques, where so each of them were very different, and which I thought was interesting as well. But yeah, so that can lead to a whole host of new information.
Okay. I was wondering, and I had another question that I got from the book. Oh.
Mhm.
Hello? Could she have locked up?
Looks like
Could
it.
be. She's at the end of a really crappy internet connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I seem to be back.
Okay.
Sorry. And anytime I freeze up, go on without me.
Okay.
I had a question from the book about Garlon. Or I just figured there'd be a great story in trapping spirits, which it just looks like one that would work very well.
Yeah, just looking at it, you kind of get drawn into it. But
yes, not like the spirit bowls that Sarah Mastros showed us how to do. But is there a good story that goes with that? Because I know that often you will make you will get a symbol for a specific purpose.
And this was one of those. Did I mention it in the thing at all?
Yes, but not everyone here has your book. So
there was a young lady I knew, and she had health issues, and so I was at another ADF festival in Tucson, Arizona, and she happened to be there, and someone who's very say sensitive. She's got like the sight, she could see things. She's like, is there something attached to you? And she had talked about this thing that had been with her for most of her life. I think she did something stupid when she was younger, magic wise, but so
we all do that.
Yeah. So this was after I taught a class. So they used I think we used Relaxine, the energy channel, to kind of draw it out of her. And then I thought later, after I got home, having a thing to trap spirits, so you can have them kept in a jar somewhere, the really nasty ones that you don't want out, probably be very handy. So I came up with that, asked and got the symbol. So, I mean, then I thought, yeah, you could make little jars, put it on the bottom, attune the whole thing to it. And then if necessary, you can use a channeling symbol to summon them in there. I've got also various manifesting circle type things to summon spirits in. So I suppose for ghost busting, if there's something nasty, you could summon it and then suck it into the jar and seal it up, and that'll work too.
I just tell people, try and be familiar with them, try and learn them, but don't worry, you don't have to know them all before you can use a few. If the only herbs you know are plantain for bug bites and bee stings and mint for a upset tummy, you're still an herbalist. You're just a beginner. But those two things will work for you.
Yep.
And just like the lady who protected her house from a hurricane,
Hmm.
Rún Valdr will work for you. Even if you don't know all the runes yet. There may be runes you never use.
Yeah,
But-
or the other symbols too, because there's tons of symbols. I mean, I probably forgotten more symbols than are in the book.
Yeah, I don't use, I love the symbol for out of body travel,
Hmm.
which is basically it's an oval which
Yeah.
overlaps a triangle.
Hmm.
And I tell people it's like there is a, like the triangle is Midgard and the oval is where you're headed. And then there is an arc that goes right in between them. That's the Rainbow Bridge. And
Yeah.
that's that is one of the best symbols and one of the easiest ways to get out of your body I can find. And I'm
Mhm.
not doing it. No, no, I'm staying right here in this body. But if you want that, it's there.
Yeah, that symbol has always been perplexing for me. Like, how the fuck do I use it? I mean, I can never. I recognize by looking at it, it looks like interface between two different worlds.
Hmm.
But I think using the rainbow bridge in the middle maybe help you to push you out, but might help during trance journey work.
You
A lot of the
always
other
want
symbols-
to have a way back.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
more important that you have the path back than it is that you get out.
Well, that's what the distance symbol is for. And thankfully, my distance symbol is a lot easier than the Reiki distance symbol.
Yeah, I love the distance symbol. The symbol that we do not say being bound with a oath of silence in Reiki.
It's complicated, like
It-
24 different little strokes, and you're like,
Yeah,
crap.
but this one it works so well.
Hmm.
And I don't know if you have, but I have used it to send magic into the past,
Hmm.
which is really useful, especially when you forgot to do something.
Oh, I've done that with attunements, where like, oh crap, I forgot to do the attunement, or I'm late, so I just send it back to the past, and with the intent that they'll get it when they expect to get it. And then I send them an email, hey, congratulations. So I've done that a lot.
I've sent feelings and energy to myself
Excuse me.
when I needed them. I said,
Mhm.
I say, okay, so I needed it now. But so when I'm in a better space, I've got to remember to send it to now.
Well, that's an
And-
interesting.
And the key is you look around so that you can see what's going on around you at the moment,
Hmm.
so that you have focus on that moment in time as well as that space. And so you have a target. You always have to aim. Magic requires aiming.
Could also help with
and
traumatic things
then-
in your past too. You could, target, traumatic experience in your childhood. Do that too to work through.
But
things.
I've done that and I felt like really crap. And then 3 seconds later, it's like, oh, thank goodness. But you have to remember to, in the future, come back and send that energy there.
Yeah.
It's like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
I was just thinking that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I use lots of movie references when I'm teaching.
Mhm.
It's modern America's mythology.
Yeah.
So you do work with Iduna. I thought with Idunath that you probably did,
Yeah.
but can you tell me more about? Let's see if I can get it. Let me put it on. Here, can you see that one?
Grav, what is it?
That is, Gramva.
Gravma?
Gramva. It's
Gramva.
got, it's a circle
Yeah.
with top and bottom, and then one thing coming from the center all the way out.
Yeah, that started also at a ConVocation. We were talking in the hallway, and someone was talking about psychic vampires, and because my instructors in Reiki said, well, if they were being fed upon by a psychic vampire, just turn on Reiki, and they fill them up. And then Michelle Bellinger came by, who was like the psychic vampire person, and she's like, well, that's not necessarily going to work because Reiki is not necessarily a type of energy the body readily uses. So I'm like, huh, what if there's a symbol that would translate that energy into something the body could use? So I came up with Terranol. It was a focus symbol as well as that one, to translate the energy so that you'd make the energy more useful for a body to use, which I suppose would help with healing work, and possibly helpful with any psychic vampires. But I've never really had a chance to test it out with a psychic vampire to see if it actually works. So
Well, the vampires I know tend to be ethical and only take energy from when there's a plenty of volunteers. I use Hanso for transformation.
that could work too, but I want something a little more specific. And because Michelle talked about using Reiki, but then having someone else kind of translate the energy, and then you can pass it on to someone who needs it. So like, oh, that seems like a bother. So just have a symbol that'll do it automatically. Seemed more appropriate. But so I did a normal symbol and then the Terranol, which is the focus symbol. So the whole working would be like that. So that's the story behind that.
I know I haven't had any luck with the weight loss one.
Me either. And that's the second generation weight loss one too. I mean,
Neither on myself or on anybody else. It hasn't worked.
yeah, maybe at the most a little bit of less appetite, maybe, but not much. So some of the symbols not that effective. Probably need to be reworked.
I wonder and worry that perhaps when you're getting one for a specific person, it may only be for a specific person.
Mm-hmm.
Except Naglor just is dynamite for pain.
I mean, that was specifically for migraines, but as you all know, it works great for any kind of pain. I have a story about that as well. There's at another 80th festival, there was Warrior Games, and someone broke their collarbone. It was like Saturday afternoon, so they went to a doctor, and by the time they got home, it was, too late to get the pain medicine prescription filled. So I went over there and I did Rún Valdr. I used Naglor, and he's like, "Oh, wow, do they call you Vicodin?" Because apparently the pain was gone. And collarbones hurt like hell. So I mean, that's a bad break.
I'm going to pass on for the people who are listening and not looking at the chat. Janine Marie had said it would work, that it I think the demon trap one, whose name I've forgotten already, would work with malignant narcissists, psychological name for unethical psychic vampires. So for the people who are listening and haven't got the chat to look at. But I suppose I should also mention that while I have put the fetched, which I think is a more functional address for Lulu, you can just go to the Lulu website and look up Rún Valdr, and Rodney Cox, and you can get the book then. And then you can contact Rod either on Facebook or the Rún Valdr group on Facebook, or Rod, if you want to put your email up, you could do that.
Here, give me a moment here.
And get an attunement, because the attunements don't. The lovely thing about the distance symbol is there is no problem with time and space.
Yep. The one thing I like about the Rún Valdr attunements is you actually feel energy feedback from it. It's not like the Reiki one where you feel absolutely nothing. This one you can feel energy, you can feel how they're receiving it, whether you need to go faster or slower. Because I tend to go really fast with the runes and the symbols, but sometimes you're like, okay, I need to go slower. Here I can go fast, here I have to go slower. So there is feedback. You feel energy in my palm. I feel energy in my palm when I'm doing it. So it's really interesting.
And yet I don't.
You
But,
don't?
yeah, well, but on the other hand, I've had people in classes tell me that they can see the thought forms I'm building.
Hmm.
When I put up the Grimbal symbol around somebody they see the sphere forming.
Mhm.
So I think we each have our different talents.
Yeah.
And one of mine is I am a amazing conduit. There's almost no resistance in me. So, but on the other hand, sometimes I can see and describe who is watching the attunement,
Mhm.
who guardians and totems and gods who are there eager to say, oh, and now that you have this new ability, I am going to teach, I'm going to use you are going to use this for protection, or yes, I want you to use this to heal, or everybody
And
has
I don't
different,
notice that at all. So
it's a very big toolkit that
Mhm.
can be used for so many different things.
Yeah. Well, I remember in your class, which was like the first one, I had someone give me an attunement because I had never had a physical attunement at that point. It was just trance journey work with Odin, and it felt a bit different. What I thought was interesting too is that you feel this energy moving down the line into your second chakra, and then after it was done, you kind of energy expanded outward for a while. It was like someone described it as like a data dump, and it takes time to process and parse it all out. So
The difference for me that I noticed that with often you get physical reactions after a Reiki attunement. And so I for the first year carried around bags of chocolate, which is really good for grounding out when you've done a lot of energy work. And people didn't get that disassociation with Rún Valdr.
yeah.
So it seems.
Yeah, I always remember halfway through after the attunement, like, oh yeah, by the way, there might be side effects. So I never remember till after the attunement to mention that. But usually there's not. Oh, there's a couple cases where there were things. And another ADF festival I taught, and then some guy came up and goes, I got a really bad headache after the attunement. I'm like, oh great, someone's gonna die. This is all I need. So I said, well, just concentrate on Shinal, because it's for concentrating energy and harnessing it. Just concentrate on that, and which I recommend everyone who learns the system, just spend time doing that. That's really one of the cores of the whole system. And if an hour or two later you came to go, oh, the headache's gone. You told me to do work. I'm like, great. And then there's some guy in India who had a distance attunement, and he wrote back, goes, this is not Reiki. You have to unattune me. I'm like, what? What? Wait. It's like you have to make me not a non-virgin again, a virgin again. It's not going to work. So I went to Odin. Like, okay, this guy wants to be unattuned. You go, here's a symbol. Here's how you do it. I'm like, okay. And I did it. And the guy's like, it didn't work. So I'm like, well, just leave it alone, and eventually it'll go away. And
Did he ever say why he needed to be unattuned?
he didn't like it. I guess it wasn't. I guess the energy was not quite as compatible as he thought it would be. So I guess it was kind of jarring. So I suppose, again, even in just concentrating on Shinal would probably have helped out too. But he insisted on getting unattuned. I'm like, I don't think that's possible. Even to this day, I'm convinced that Odin was just playing a joke on my, yeah, sure, kid. Here's a de-attunement symbol.
Yeah, that sounds like grandfather.
Yeah.
We had I had a woman once who now I'm very I move my hands a lot. I end up sometimes with sore shoulders because I'm doing it all. I do the Shinal. Ponytails get in the way because I'll go be going down behind their head, visualizing the Shinal line going through the top of their head down to the solar plexus, and I'll hit the ponytail, and I apparently didn't finish the stroke properly, and it all puddled not in the solar plexus, but in the throat chakra, and where it was uncomfortable. So the next day she came and I had to push it all down, get it in the right place. And I had one person who get it, and he woke up the next morning and it was all gone. He felt it at the time, but his guide said, no, this is not compatible with what we want for you. And so they just flushed it for themselves. But during classes, one of the things that I do is when I'm doing a class, I will, if I'm going to stop, and because I'm teaching, and so I will say everything out loud. And so when I have put the Chanel down into them, if I stop to say something, I will put one hand over their head to block any energy from coming in until I have frozen. But then I will have the rest of the class come up with their permission, and then they can put their hand over the person's head. And if they pass it back and forth over the head, they can feel when there's a Chanel there, they can feel it being sucked in, because Chanel wants to draw everything in. It kind of creates a sucking thing. And this is why I always double check to make sure that's been sealed up, because you don't want to leave a sucking head wound.
Yeah.
in somebody's aura.
Well, you don't want to keep absorbing.
Wait a second, there
All
we
right.
go.
There we go.
Sorry.
Yeah, I guess you don't want to constantly sucking in a bunch of crap.
Yeah, I was trying to pin it back onto your face, and I hit your mute. But yeah, but it allows people to breaking through that unbelief. That's really important during a class, because people, we're rationalists, we're full of science, and a lot of people, you got to break through that, which is why I try and take time to make people heal something. And once people they all do healings on each other, and they say, the pain went away. Whoa, it works. Yes. Then they will go out and try and heal somebody.
Yeah.
A sister with migraines who would call me up and say, I've got a migraine coming. Can you do that thing you do? But as I have told her, when it stopped working after about a dozen times, and I said, the gods are sending you migraines for a reason. Now, it could be that you're eating something you shouldn't eat, or whatever. We'll do the magic to heal you a few times, but you got to take responsibility. That sounds a lot like some of Yusui's early Reiki stories.
Yeah.
Like, we'll fix your car. We got to stop driving into walls. You know, I mean.
Or another healing practitioner I know says, before you do the energy healing, first take the nail out.
Yeah.
Which is a great analogy.
First set the bone before you do Reiki on it. Yeah.
Oh God, yes. Okay, what are some of the other things? Can you see here? I have, you know how they put the little tabs in dictionaries? I have put colored bands so that I can find things.
I need to get that book.
Yes, you do, and it's not that expensive.
As a caveat, I would recommend do not get the EPUB version. The pictures are not in line, so the pictures for the Sif Qigong are a bit wonky.
I like books I can hang on to, unless e-publishing is the only way I can get it.
Yeah, so I mean, the EPUB, I need to go through and all the Sif Qigong pictures put in line so they line up properly. But yeah.
I haven't tried the Qigong yet, but.
And there are some spelling errors. If you look at the table of contents for the Sif Qigong, it says C Qigong. And the Elder Futhark picture, I think, is missing Kenaz. So
Oops.
yeah.
You want all of those.
So yeah, there's just a few little things I found after, went published. I'm like, crap.
And there's some fun stuff with the advanced techniques
Mhm.
because you learn it, you explore all the things that you've got, and then hey, there's more stuff. Cool.
Yeah, I tried to set up the book to be fairly normal. Okay, here's the runes, here's the symbols, here's how to use it. Oh, there's the forlar, the de-attunement symbol. Then
That's actually useful if you make something and it turns out not to be working the way you wanted it to.
Really? You actually
Yeah.
found a use for it?
Yeah.
Well, I am glad.
I
'Cause
need-
I thought Odin was just having fun with me.
No, but it's one of those that then you use the one that restores things to its original setting.
Oh yeah.
But it basically, I've had a few notable oopses.
Yes.
Nothing I want to recount, but it's a good one for as it were, shutting down the reaction.
Mm-hmm.
It's slamming the cadmium in through the graphite into the uranium.
Well, cool.
Now,
I'm glad that there's actually a use for that. It's not just
well,
a.
I wondered at the beginning about Grishtor. So what? Everything is sacred. Everything in its natural state. What's it for? Then I realized when you have built something, when you've created some
Yep.
new thing out of other pieces, yeah, that's where you use Grishtor. Like,
Or if you
right, that
have
makes-
statues for your deities, you can hallow them.
Painted on the
Or-
bottom.
Yeah.
and
What I do.
awaken them.
Yeah.
But I find there's just so many things that that's another reason that I recommend people write things down.
Mm-hmm.
Is so that you can then write down what the effects were later.
Yeah.
Because we can learn. This is still a very young system, and that's why it's very important to have the interaction. The Yahoo group was wonderful while it was active, and then Yahoo went away.
Mhm.
and the Facebook group isn't quite as active.
Yeah.
But it's but interacting, talking about, oh, I tried this, oh, I tried that.
Mm-hmm.
That is such a wonderful thing.
Yeah. There's I said there's a lot of cool tools, especially in the advanced stuff. I mean, you've got the deity symbols, which I think is actually getting back to Grishtor for a moment. I see it kind of like putting a divine spotlight on something, so it can drive away all the bad, nasty things.
It's also useful if you've made something specifically for dealing with bad, nasty things. Sometimes they need something that says, "Hi, this is a holy object. I'm going to hit you with it. You're going to hurt."
I've done that with various weapons. I have a spear.
Yeah.
Because when I was working on Trance Journey with Odin and Freya, they're like, you have to have a staff. I'm like, okay. So I have a staff, and I jazzed it all up with RunValdr. And then I said, well, I can use a spear because that works too. So it's, I put the whole, Grishtor in there, and I have a sword and stuff that, in case
Staff has the advantage that it seems a little less aggressive, and you can always pull you wouldn't deny an old man his walking stick, would you?
True. But on a trance journey, a spear can be effective as well. And it kind of states, okay, here, you know who my father is. I got a spear. So, yeah, I mean, although I remember another convocation, they were doing this energy thingy, and I was projecting Grishtor out, and someone came by and goes, oh, I don't like that. I'm like, I have to wonder, why don't you like that? Because it's like pure divine energy. If you don't like that, oh, that was another thing, that one woman who had the entity attached to her. I used Grishtor on her, and she became uncomfortable. She didn't like it. I think the entity didn't like it, and was providing negative feedback to get me to stop doing it. So I'm like, if you don't like this energy, I'm worried about you, I think.
I would worry about that entity.
Yeah,
No,
I mean, but if a normal person walk around and they didn't like the energy from Grishtor, I'm like, you need to watch out for yourself, because
My little flag reminded me it's time to
Yeah.
finish up. Okay, I'm going to remind everybody that to tell your friends about this. If you came in late, it will be this will be posted on the YouTube channel, the Changing Times, Changing World YouTube channel, probably tomorrow, if not then Friday. Please join the Facebook group if you like. Join the Rún Valdr Facebook group, and come to the conference this fall if you can. It's going to be virtual again this year. It will be taking place in November. I have the name. It's November. There it is. Minimize that window. Silly me. November 8th to 14th. It'll be evening panels Monday and classes Monday through Friday, and all day long on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Maybe if we're lucky, we can get Rod to come and talk about Rún Valdr again for the conference.
Barely scratched the surface.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great thing. But I'm going to close for tonight.
Yep.
Thank you, and
Welcome. Time to blank our magic mirrors and